Joining us live from Melbourne is the Liberal Senator Jane Hume. Good morning to you, Jane. So these protests combined now, how are you feeling about them and the fact that these world famous landmarks are being used and allowed?
Pete, every Australian has the right to protest, to peacefully protest. They have the right to free speech. But there were some rather disturbing images that came out over the weekend. I thought that the sight of a poster of Ayatollah Khamenei behind some of those celebrity-faced protesters was very disturbing. This is a man that's overseen 30 years of oppression of his own Iranian democracy fighters, oppression of women, and has an agenda of the destruction of Israel. That is a really explicit and provocative thing to do. The destruction of property in Melbourne, particularly around that Zara store, banging on the windows, defacing those windows. This isn't peaceful protest, this is disruption. We want to make sure that everybody has the right to peaceful protest. Everyone wants to see an end to the trouble in the Middle East. Everybody does, of course they do. But sometimes these protests become an avenue for professional anarchists. We can't see that. We can't see police put at risk. And I tip my hat to the police in both New South Wales and Victoria who did such a good job controlling some of the more troublesome elements.
Well, particularly in Sydney, I mean, it was largely trouble-free, and it was all organised within the space of a day or two, so police didn't have much time to put that all together. But the protesters are vowing to keep on going. I mean, that's going to be a constant frustration for commuters and people trying to get in and out of the city. I mean, are you for all that? I mean, you're all for protests. Are you for all of that to continue for as long as needs be?
You can make a point without disrupting everyday Australians going about their lives. And, let's face it, these protests may serve a purpose for the protesters, but I'm not sure they're actually changing the outcome in the Middle East. We want to make sure that the people have the right to freedom of speech, they have the right to protest, but not at any cost, certainly not at the destruction of property, and certainly not at the price of disruption of everyday Australians' lives, just going about their business.
The interesting piece today, actually it was around yesterday, that the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, he's trying to get Benjamin Netanyahu on the phone. I mean, they have had a troubled relationship, or there has been a lot of negativity coming our way from Benjamin Netanyahu in recent months because of the rise in anti-Semitism here. We don't have to cast our minds back that far to remember all of that. Do you think we're likely to get any kind of discussion with the leader of Israel?
Well, that rise in anti-Semitism continues on today. Sometimes it's really obvious, sometimes it's subtle. There was an article in the newspaper over the weekend by a former editor of The Age newspaper, a Jewish man, who noted that a bunch of schoolchildren, Jewish schoolchildren, only around 10 years old, were confronted by older schoolchildren, around 16, at the Melbourne Museum, shouting "dirty Jews." Now, this is appalling behaviour and cannot be allowed to continue. We want to see the Prime Minister take steps to stamp out this anti-Semitism. The idea that Jewish Australians could still feel under threat, could still feel persecuted, is outrageous. So you can understand why that relationship between Australia, the Australian Prime Minister, and the Israeli Prime Minister would be fraught unless Benjamin Netanyahu would think that Anthony Albanese is serious about stamping out anti-Semitism in Australia.
Just on to a complete change of topic now, Jane. Sally McManus, interesting interview that she did with the ABC yesterday where she raised a couple of items that would be on her productivity wish list. Let's just take some of this and we'll come out the back of it.
The issue isn't, ordinary Australians that are trying to get ahead and have an investment property. That's not the issue. The issue is that a small number of investors, and we're talking about 1% of investors, own 25% of the investment properties.
So there's a range of things, as I mentioned there, on her wish list. She says that the capital gains tax discount should be limited to one investment property. That would irk many mum and dad investors who have much more than that. But how do you feel about this? Should there be limitations? Is there scope to put a limit on property tax breaks for those who have 6, 7 properties?
Pete, Sally McManus hasn't just belled the cat here. She has set off alarm bells. The Coalition have been saying for some time that the government has an agenda that it wants to deliver that involves not just taxing capital gains or getting rid of the capital gains tax discount, but getting rid of negative gearing, tax on family trusts. These are increases on mining taxes. These are all things that the Coalition have been saying have been part of the part of the Labor Party's agenda. Well, now the ACTU have just proven it writ large. This productivity roundtable, we've already seen from Treasury that you cannot get the budget back in balance unless you cut spending and raise taxes. Now the ACTU has essentially put forward the Labor Party's agenda for them. We do not want to see a productivity roundtable that essentially ticks off the Labor Party agenda. We want to make sure it's actually going to deliver on productivity. Now, what is the ACTU doing talking about property taxes? That's entirely out of its remit, unless it's simply a redistributionist agenda. That's the concern for the Coalition. Now, we have said that we will be part of a conversation about genuine tax reform, but not tax reform that comes at the expense of simply rising taxes for Australian families, for Australian businesses, for retirees. That's not what we want to see.
Just on
If the government is serious about productivity, though, this productivity agenda won't simply be about the ACTU's agenda.
Do you think it would help young people get a home, though, if those limitations, or if there was a limitation on the number of investment properties that folks had?
Do you know what would help young people get a home? If there were more homes to buy. If
so
there
that's a
wasn't
no on that
such
other point, though. So you think there should be no limitations?
So much red tape. Well, we know that the government said that they're going to build 1.2 million homes, and they are no way near that target, no way near it. So how about we unlock supply? How about we get rid of the red tape that's in the way of building new homes? Because that's the way that we're going to get young people into their first homes.
But on that point of limitations, though, on the number of investment properties that folks can have before they lose that discount, you're not entertaining that? You don't think there should be a limit?
I'm scratching my head as to why the ACTU is interested in this. That's not in their purview.
Yeah.
This is simply
but I'm asking you, do you think there should be a limit or not?
Put forward by this organisation. Well, I haven't seen any data to suggest that that would actually help. Certainly that's not something the Productivity Commission, for instance, has come up with. What we want to see is more homes built to allow more young Australians into homes. Okay. Perhaps the ACTU would be better served by dealing with the industrial relations blockages to productivity reforms, because let's face it, that's what the Jobs and Skills Summit did 3 years ago. It essentially slowed down productivity rather than enhancing it. Now the government's in remedial mode, but it sounds like the ACTU is simply going to walk all over every other participant there.
Okay, I've gone over, Jane. Thanks for your time, though. Chat again soon.